On Independence Day, we celebrate the country's break from England in 1776 to gain freedom. Surging prices and tightening budgets, however, are making financial freedom in 2022 more difficult.
We don't know what to do because the prices are increasing every single day.
I just think the gas prices are ridiculous.
People are feeling these pinches. If you're renting, 25% increases. If you're buying a home, you're seeing a 60% increase. And the official government numbers are saying, no, you're just seeing a 6% increase year over year. But families realize it's far, far worse than that.
In keeping track of your budget, you've no doubt noticed the impact of higher prices. That reality is spreading as consumer sentiment sits at its lowest point since researchers started tracking that feeling in 1952. Joel Griffith with the Heritage Foundation.
Regardless of whether we end up in technically a recession, the bottom line is that for the majority of American families, they're experiencing a real decline in their standard of living.
There are three holidays, there are three moments when Americans take to the roads and when Americans buy more food than at any other time of the year: Christmas, Thanksgiving, and the 4th of July weekend.
Pollster and political consultant Frank Luntz warning Americans that July 4th demand for gas, food, and travel could set off inflation fireworks.
The Biden administration is afraid of the political impact, so they're downplaying the personal impact. And the truth is they should be candid.
The government's measure for inflation, the Consumer Price Index, shows average prices rose 8.6% over last year. A daily reminder of that pain coming at the pump, with gas roughly $5 a gallon, some states averaging well over that.
If you're a family with multiple children, you add on that travel cost along with the food cost and lodging too. A lot of hotels are up 20-something% year over year, and I hope that families aren't going to risk going into even deeper debt to fund a holiday weekend. In times of uncertainty, it's good to act fiscally responsible.
And when the music fades and everyone heads home, many Americans will likely face a harsh reality.
And the typical family, a middle-class family, is seeing close to a $3,000 pay cut over the past year or so because inflation is outpacing wage growth. We're going to see the impacts from the massive government spending on the inflation front. We're going to see that for years to come.
The Federal Reserve faces an audacious goal to try and tame surging costs. And Federal Chairman Jerome Powell acknowledges if interest rates go too high too fast, we could be headed towards a recession. Brody Carter, CBN News.
All right, thank you, Brody. Joining us now is Mark Hamrick, Senior Economic Analyst and Washington Bureau Chief at Bankrate. Mark, it's always great to have you. You know, it feels like we're in a perfect storm scenario for economic collapse. High inflation, rising interest rates, and unpredictable markets. So, Mark, as the title of a recent Bankrate article says, are we in a recession, or does it just feel that way to many Americans?
Economic collapse is a little severe there, John and Caitlin. I think what some of the earlier sound bites pointed to is that inflation is miserable enough. We don't really have to be in a recession for people to feel miserable because they're already feeling that way. We just did complete, I will give you a little bit of a news alert here. We just completed an economist survey at Bankrate, and we basically have the economists saying that there's a 50-50 chance of a recession in the next 12 to 18 months. Now, that's not 100%. It doesn't mean that it has already started. It could have, but we just don't know that. And at the end of the day, it could be a short and shallow recession if we have one, which would be a lot different than the 14.7% unemployment rate we had at the beginning of the pandemic, as well as the 10% unemployment rate after the great financial crisis. Obviously, what we also heard there was a lot of political finger pointing. The reality is that there's been a convergence of unprecedented factors that have all created and led to this situation that, as you note, is the worst in decades, and it's going to take a while to get out of this.
In Brody's piece a moment ago, we heard from Frank Luntz, and he warned that the holiday demand could make inflation worse. Do you agree?
No, I don't. It's, that suggests that it needs to get, into a different position to be bad. We already have consumers saying that essentially they're as downbeat as they've been in decades. And the reality is, I think, I respect Frank. He knows a lot about politics. The reality is that once we get past this period, I think consumers are going to be pulling back further, not able to spend on as many things as they would like. And we've already begun to see some of that. that. And so the reality is that if demand begins to wither, you will see that reflected in prices. So we may have seen the peak of inflation. We're not ready to sort of spike that football yet. We need to see it in the data, but we are seeing gasoline prices come off. We're seeing other commodities prices come off as well.
Mark, in the last few seconds we have, the Labor Department, of course, as you know, released the latest unemployment numbers today. They show very little change. What does that suggest to you about the job market?
It means, John, that we're not seeing the layoffs that we know that are happening out there sort of tilt the economy in a downward fashion. But we will be getting the June employment or unemployment report out in about a week. We'll be watching that closely. Right now, the expectation is the jobless rate remains steady at 3.6%.
All right, if it's Thursday, we can always count on Mark to bring us great insights. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.